Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool. And today let's take a closer look at these Knipex locking pliers. These are the 4114 250s, made in Germany, chrome vanadium steel. It looks like it's galvanized. And we'll compare them, how about head to head, to these Snap-ons. These are the Snap On LP7WCs, a little bit smaller. We'll also take a look at a couple others, in particular this old pair of Craftsman. But anyway, these are a larger pair of locking pliers, but they have some significant differences compared to other pliers, especially the Snap-ons. So let's take a closer look. If we grab these and line them up, one of the biggest differences is going to be right here at the bottom, and there are a few very significant differences there. First of all, let's talk about the release lever. On the Knipex, this does two things. Not only does it release the tension, so put something in here, so when it's snapped down, this not only releases the tension, but it also keeps this other handle captive. Why is that important? Because I haven't lost my workpiece even though I've released the tension, not until I get out here. So you see how that actually allows me to grab it right there? You see that? You know, I can lock it down, but I can also release it and keep tension on that. That is amazing. Let's take a look at, say, the Snap-ons. Well, the Snap-ons, you have to release it by pushing away. And the only way you can really keep it captive if it's under a heavy load, a two-handed load, is to hang on to it. So now you're operating it like this. The Craftsman, on the other hand, does have a similar locking mechanism. However, it springs it totally free, basically like that. That's a pretty substantial difference. Throw something in here. So if I've clapped down on that tight, look at that. I've released it, but I'm still grabbing it. That is wonderful. It's also a much more natural feel. And when you're trying to make adjustments, we all do this, you know, but except it's too loose now. I want it a little tighter. Get it back in there. What I can do here is use the combination, releasing it and then tightening it up as I release. We all do that, except Kinpex makes it easier, or obviously tighten it down. And then there's my captive, so it's not falling out, which is pretty neat. I'll point out now, and I'll do it again when I get to the jaws, but you really have to make sure things are centered. Did you see the difference there? So it's in there tight, right? Right? Well, look at this. If I loosen it a little and just rotate it, now it slides through. The way this jaw geometry matches up with a hex bolt allows you both to have it line up perfectly, which is what I'd want to clamp down on. That's the smallest interface there. But I can also grab it quite easily in a different geometry, which means I can grab it and have it slip and pop loose. I'll point that out a little more detail in a moment. But anyway, so that's one difference, is that captive lever. And to me, that's a big deal. Another, it has to do with the way this machining with the threading has been done on the Knipex. Look at that weld. I don't know, looks like a Friday afternoon weld or maybe a Monday morning weld. But anyway, what they've done is they've literally just folded the steel over, pretty common, and then dropped in a weld to secure it and then thread it. Now, I think they can get away with it because this is such big, heavy steel. Craftsman, if you look at them, this is what they did. They actually have a collar and a pinch system. So they literally pinched a threaded collar and then hope it holds. I haven't had any real problem with it. It doesn't even look tapered, but there's a huge amount of force there. So somehow that's held in. I hope more than just a standard pinch, but maybe. And what did Snap-on do? Snap-on did something a little bit different. And what they did was they actually folded it over just like Knipex did, and then threaded it, and they've got nice heavy steel there, but then they also added or welded on, somehow secured on this additional collar for retention. So you're not risking spreading this out. I don't know if they welded it inside there or not. It looks kind of like they may have. It's hard to see in there, but there's just a little bit of discoloration like what you might see if they welded it. But I can also see here that it's hard to tell. But anyway, that's how they solved it. So a few differences there. As long as it holds up, great. Now Snap On knows a thing or two about these kinds of pliers, like how not to make them. This is an earlier Snap On here. This one is the LP7WC Slim, and I got it for low torque stuff. This design that they made, or whoever was making it, made in Spain, probably Baco then, I guess, was notorious for not holding up, breaking, bending, etc. I didn't mind it in the tiny little pliers like this that are for low torque, you know, kind of getting into smaller areas, but I never touched the larger ones. I had heard so much about them failing. But I jumped on these as soon as they came out, and I don't mind them. Nice, you know, they are a little bit tougher to release under pressure than, say, the Knipex, but really well made, very nice. Now let's move up and talk jaws. Oh, one other thing, because Snap-on's asking you to crank down on it, say with a 1/4 inch, you know, then you really are invited to apply a lot of pressure. I don't know if I mentioned that. But anyway, so Knipex, what we've got up at the front end, which is obviously something you might notice. Let me spin this thing in. Is that the front end has kind of that classic Knipex sort of a trapezoidal look. They do like that geometry. So compared to, say, a Cobra here, you can see, you know, something's a little bit reminiscent in terms of the jaw geometry. A little different here, though. Now, because these are designed as locking pliers, they really, you know, in order to use them, you really need to use the locking feature. They're not great for just grabbing things and using them like regular pliers. So because of this size, this nut here is too small for these pliers in the kind of the trapezoid area. It goes right through, even though they're sealed at the end. So so Knipex has a little bit more of a grabby area up front for a little smaller nuts. Whoops. So you can see that clamped down, so that should hold. And then it's got a little bit more precision right up front. In fact, they're actually machined really nicely at the very tip in terms of this shape, but they're a little wonky here, and there is a little bit of play. If you compare that, say, to Snap-ons. Snap-ons, they're pretty snug. I don't know, I haven't tried the Craftsman, I guess. Craftsman, yeah, everything's tighter than these Knipex. They're way out there. And in fact, they won't seat straight. I have to hold them if I want them to seat perfectly straight. Another thing to point out before I forget is the Snap-ons do have some cutting teeth right here, or a pair of knives, actually a knife and an anvil. So they've got a flat side on this end, and then kind of a sharp V shape, so they can cut through some materials. Anyway, so let's take a look at that. It's very thick, kind of a real beefy design. A lot of times people are using these just as a clamp. In fact, these Milwaukees here, which I should point out don't have any release lever, and if you really crank them down, they take a lot of effort to pop free. These actually live on my drill press, so I can hold work pieces. The Van pliers are similar. You literally just pry the handles apart. These have the screw extraction technology. That's kind of what I wanted them, and they invite you to crank down on them as well. But Let's go back to the Knipex. So anyway, they've got a different jaw technology here. That's deliberate in this pair of pliers. That's why I bought them. And you can order all kinds of different shapes here. They've got, you know, flats, they've got parallels, they've got curves, pear shapes, and then of course this one. And this one looked the most interesting to me, so that's why I got it. It was different than any of the others. A lot of them are kind of the pear shape. This is more of an extreme pear shape here. And again, for grabbing nuts, bolts, thinking extraction. Very sharp, heavy teeth. That is totally reminiscent of the Snap-ons. If you look at that. In fact, Snap-on says they've got, you know, some of the most aggressive teeth. Van pliers are actually even a little coarser, heavier. If you go to the Knipex, you can see things are pretty tame comparative to the grabbing sharp teeth here. Actually, sharp, I think, is the word Snap-on uses. Milwaukee's, again, very large, heavy teeth, similar. Craftsman, not much. They're pretty smooth. So depending on what you want to use it for, you take that into consideration. As far as price, these guys, I paid about 31 bucks for them. That's less than half of what these Snap-ons cost. I got them on Amazon in March 2020, and you know, they're not finished to any kind of a level that would, you know, demand a higher price. They're, you know, stamped metal, it looks like, press fit, riveted, and even the rivets are kind of rough. You know, lots of tool marks, little dents, indentations, scoring, you know, bumps. Look at that right there. I mean, they look like they're designed to go right into industrial work. They're not jewelry like these that I hang on my wall. Look at them every day. But they are definitely workhorses, and they really, they've opened up a new world for these kinds of pliers, these locking pliers for me, and I really like this design. I mean, they put some effort into that. Because that is one of those things that sometimes gets you in a little bit of trouble. Working, everything springs forward and they go flying off, or you lose whatever it was you were grabbing. So anyway, between the two, well, they're different tools for different things. I'm not going to leave these on my drill press table, but I don't know if I'd take these as an overlanding plier, because I kind of like the way these work. This is a large one too. And that's what I'm sort of filling out, because my others are all fairly small. But I do think that they are worth 31 bucks. They're definitely a nice feeling tool for the money. And with that, Doc out.